Hey everybody, Jim Sammons here. I recently had Adam Fisk from Los Buzos Resort in Panama on for a live show with me. We talked about his amazing catch of a really large black marlin, as well as the resort itself and what they have to offer. I hope you enjoy this show. Stick around. Hey everybody, Jim Sammons here from the Kayak Fishing Show live, brought to you by Ballast Point Brewing Company. Today we're having a Grunion Pale Ale. If you haven't had one of these, they're very good. Kind of hoppy, like an IPA, but not super bitter. It doesn't kick you in the teeth. Very drinkable, very tasty. So that's the Ballast Point Grunion. Cheers to y'all, and thanks for joining me here today. Remember, if you are watching the show and you want to comment and participate and ask questions, you need to be watching on the Jim Sammons page, and it's in the description of the video. If you're not commenting on the Jim Sammons page, I won't be able to see the comments. So we won't be able to answer any of your questions, anything like that. So please make sure you are commenting over there. Excuse me. My guest today is Adam Fisk, and he is basically the head guide in charge at Los Buzos Resort down in Panama. We did a trip down there. It is a super, super cool place. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's probably one of the only resorts, well, one of two places that are really just dedicated to kayak fishing. Down in Louisiana, Pack Kayak Rentals is, it's a place that is designed to cater to kayak anglers. Well, Los Buzos is that and more. I mean, great food, great accommodations, wonderful location, and of course, you have the ability of catching monster fish. The big Cubera snapper, grouper, tuna, dorado, and of course, marlin. All right, well, we now have Adam on screen. Let me close this thing. Stop sharing that. Adam, how are you, man? Can you hear me okay?
Doing great. I hear you perfect.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. You're a little pixelated. I don't know how you're looking on the screen, but we'll just go with it. And glad you could make it. You're back stateside for a few weeks. But you're spending most of your time down in Panama now.
Yeah, this is the first time I've gotten to come back to the States for a while, for many months. Like probably around 6 months, but it's good to be back.
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, you kind of introduce yourself, tell everybody what your job and title is down there, and how long you've been heading that up.
All right. Well, I'm the operations manager at Los Buzos, and I'm also the head guide. So I'm the guy that takes you out and tries to put you on these big fish, and I've been doing it been doing that at Los Buzos for about a year and a half. And I've been a guide for about 3 years. I used to work with Deep Blue down in East Florida.
Okay. So you had experience catching a lot of sailfish and stuff through that operation?
Yeah. So that was like actually one of our most common catches was sailfish down there with them. And now it's roosterfish and cuberas. So we're real dialed in on them now. We catch them almost every time.
Wow. Yeah. The roosters have always been one of my favorite fish. And those cubera just taunted us on our trip visiting you. My biggest one I ever caught was about 32 pounds, but the ones we were hooking down there were just using and abusing us. And
they're huge down there.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the video that I had of, I got some underwater footage of myself getting rocked by one. And, I'm just such strong fish, and when you happen to let them eat those giant baits, it's kind of that fine line. How long do you let them eat it so they actually can take that big bait in, and then without ending up in the rocks. So we got a couple of comments here. Just want to address. Hey, Serge, hello from Ottawa. Charles Levy says Los Buzos is one of his favorite places.
What's up, Charles?
Dean, Jim, how can we get you on our podcast? We just did one with Adam Fisk. Send me an email, man. If we can set up the time, I'd be happy to do it. I enjoy doing these things.
Yeah, that was a great time with Dean yesterday.
What's his podcast called?
Yak Tactics.
Oh, okay. Cool. I saw that. I saw the link you had posted that. So that's very cool. If people want to see that podcast, it's out there. If they visit your page, or is the link on the Los Buzos page?
Yeah, I think I posted on Los Buzos and my personal Adam Fisk page.
So Los Buzos has a Facebook page as well. So people want to find out more about that, and of course they do have their website. And that's put it up there, losbuzos.com. A lot of great photos and basically all the information you need about the trip. So about the operation, but better to have you here and have people ask us some questions. So please shoot us some questions so Adam can answer them all. I think one of the cool things that I was seeing at Los Buzos is it's growing, it's expanding. And, from while we were there, you guys had just got the tackle shop set up, and, all the rooms are so nice. Anything new coming up? I mean, is it just charging forward?
Yeah, just charging forward. We're getting more and more deals with new products for our tackle shop, and we're not adding a whole lot of new stuff because we pretty much have everything we need. We're getting busier and busier, and we've sold out a few trips in the future, and things are looking good. And go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say these trips do sell out. So if it's something you want to do, if you guys want to join in on one of these trips, and I do highly recommend going down there, make sure you book it well in advance. If you have specific dates you want to go, make sure you get on them as soon as you can, so you can get the dates that you want, because it really is a special place, and you don't want to miss out on that. I know you work with Robert Field a little bit, and he kind of hosts groups down there as well. And so people want to join on one of his trips. It's a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Robert will be with us in January, and the first week he's there, we're actually having our World Championship tournament. So we have guys from all over the world, actually, from Australia, Singapore, Canada, Germany, a few other countries, and they're coming to compete for $10,000. Just a 12-man total field, so it's going to be interesting.
Wow!
So
I didn't get my invite.
You got to qualify. Got to qualify a couple different tournaments around the world, or at our tournament at Los Buzos. We had 4 qualifiers this year.
Yeah, I don't fish tournaments, so not much chance of me qualifying then. But I know James Macbeth from Jackson Kayak is going to be there, and Dennis also from Jackson Kayak in Europe. So I'm sure they'll have a great time. That'll be a big change for him, for Dennis particularly. I don't know that he's done much in the way of big game stuff. For him, a big game is pike. So why don't you kind of describe the operation that you guys have going on down there?
All right. So to start, we gather groups, 12 people max, and they'll come to our lodge for 5 days of fishing and 6 nights lodging. We set it up so they all fly into Panama City, and we pick them up the next morning, all at the same place at this hotel that we recommend. We bring you down. It's a 6-hour drive from the city, so we organize the transport, make sure everybody gets there at the same time. And then once you're at our lodge, we cover all your meals. You get all you can drink beer, and
let me qualify that. All you can drink ice cold beer.
That's right.
That is the coldest beer. I mean, it is just this side of freezing.
That's how we keep it. That's how we keep it.
It is that is as hot as it gets down there. That is a huge, huge bonus, and it's bottomless.
That's right. Yeah. So we always keep it stocked. But other than that, yeah, we give you all your meals. You get a fully rigged Hobie Outback or a Jackson Coosa FD to go out in every day. You
Or
get
a
a
Kraken.
guide
There is one
or
Kraken.
Kraken and a mayfly. There's a mayfly as well.
Okay.
So if you're more into paddling like Jim, like you, we have you covered. So there's that, and then you'll go out with me and the other guide, Kevin. So we'll be out there. We'll try to put you on the good spots, try to catch a live bait, teach you some new things, get you kind of dialed in on the fishery. And so you do that for 5 days. We have a couple different restaurants and places around where we'll take you to eat every night. It's not always fish every night, so you don't get sick of fish, even though some people won't. There's usually a ton of yellowfin tuna, grouper, all kinds of great fish, and we always have a pizza night midweek. So there's a little bit of change of pace. But
it was great
that's what
pizza.
we do. They do a very good job. But yeah, our most common catches are actually roosterfish and cubera snapper. You also catch bluefin trevally, big-eyed trevally. There's always a chance at sailfish, marlin, the yellowfin tuna. We catch a ton of yellowfin tuna. I think you got a few on the last trip, or was it like 3 casts?
I got quite a few. They were all little peanuts. Nothing really big, but it sure added some excitement to the day to be. And I was just throwing that little band of anglers dart spin, so on my bass rod basically. So that even though small tuna is pretty fun on that setup.
Yeah. So you'll find a lot of those around. There's a lot of small ones, but you will find big ones mixed in. There's almost every time, like we took that mothership trip. We do the mothership trip that's about 8 miles away from our lodge. It goes to a rock that's about 3 miles offshore, and it starts in about 150 feet of water, and it comes up to 35. So, and there's a lot of current circulating around there, and that's where a lot of the tunas like to go. We find tunas pretty much every single time we go there. And lately, we've actually seen some big ones. We've seen like 100-plus pounders schooling with the dolphins. But there's so many bigger. I mean, so many of the smaller ones that they get to your lure faster. But we hooked a couple, like 50, 60 pounders. They weren't the 100 pounders, but the big ones, and they got off. But they're there.
Yeah, and so people know. I mean, if you're coming, you definitely want to have live bait hooks and something to catch live bait with, because there is live bait around. But also poppers, vertical jigs, all that is something you would want to bring, right?
Absolutely.
Or you guys also have a lot of that stuff available. If people don't have it, you guys have it available in your little shop.
Yes, we have the hooks, we have the jigs, we have the perfect size poppers. We use 13-0 circle hooks. We use big circle hooks because the live baits are actually very big as well. We're using blue runners that are over 2 pounds sometimes. And bonitas, we've even bridled yellowfin tuna out there for bait, because those roosters, they have huge mouths, and you want a big hook to get around their jaw. Make sure you hook them good. So we use 13-0 circle hooks, the big 7-inch Halcos for the poppers, big deep divers, and we actually use crappie jigs to catch bait. That's our best thing to catch bait on. It just looks like a little glass minnow. You'll see schooling blue runners on the surface, or you can go up next to the rocks and cast those in the rocks, and usually there's blue runners around, and that's their favorite thing to eat. Other than that, we'll use those. I think you used some of them too. Those little knife jigs are like 25 grams.
Right.
You put them on that light action rod. You can cast them a mile, or you can drop them to the bottom. You can find.
Yeah, we didn't get any blue runners while I was there. It was all the big bonita.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so that made it a little bit tougher, like I said, and that's why we were having to let those cubera eat for such a long time, and why we were getting rocked. We've got some questions here. From Potty Mullet, question for Adam. Jim was talking about 5 hours being the longest battle he's had on a fish. What about you? Could you talk us through it? So was that black marlin your longest fight?
Okay, you broke up there for a second, but I heard a solid question.
Okay. I was just going to say, was that black marlin your longest fight?
Yes. Has to be. So it ended up being 4.5. So I wasn't really keeping track while I was fighting,
gotcha.
but I remember I see the clip where I'm like, oh yeah, it's got to be 5 hours, but it was more closer to 4.5. And it kind of went by fast, but for the most part, it was just towing me around, staying like it wasn't going as fast as you would think too. It was just kind of steadily pulling me 3 to 4 miles an hour, just straight offshore. And like I think I said in the video, I hooked it in 120 feet, and I ended up in about 4,000 or 5,000. There's a big drop off, a real steep drop off out there, but it ended up taking me about 8 to 10 miles directly offshore. For the most part, it was just kind of going in a straight line, but one time it made me nervous. Like it took this real long run straight out, and then it started jumping. Like doing a 180, started coming directly at me. And, I'm sure you've seen the videos where the Marlin jumps in the boat or something on the back of the sport fisher. So that's what's going through my head as I see this thing coming straight towards me. So it's like jumps like 5 times directly at me. And I'm like getting up on my feet, like, which way am I going to jump out? If it gets too close. But luckily it dove back down like 20 feet before it got to me, turned around and went straight offshore again. But for the most part, it was just towing me straight out, and it would do a series of jumps, and it would slow down, and then I'd catch up to it, and it would stay under me about 50 feet and just hang there. And it didn't matter how much pressure I put on it, I could not budge it. And then all of a sudden, it would just come back up and jump again, and then do the same thing. It did it like 10 times in a row. And so I'm kind of just sitting in my kayak. I got the rod pinned on my legs, just so my legs are taking the pressure, and they're just kind of resting on the footrest on the kayak. So my arms aren't getting too tired, and I'm just kind of along for the ride. And I was like texting people, there's nothing I could do, I'm just holding on. So I remember it was funny because Robert Field texted me. He's like, he was asking me a question, and I was texting him, and I'm like, well, but I'm getting pulled out. I'm getting towed by a Marlin right now. And he's like, what are you doing? Hang up the phone, catch the thing. So that was funny. But yeah, I was just kind of along for the ride. And then once it finally got tired, I got it all the way up right next to the boat. I got the swivel to the rod tip, and you can see me in the video in the longer version. I kind of tried to lift the rod up so I can grab the line and get closer to the fish. But like once I did that, it just dove again, and the sun was like halfway over the horizon, so it was like about to get dark. And I figured I already got the leader, got some pretty good. I actually got awesome pictures, and so I just held the spool and popped them off. But it was a hell of a ride. That's for sure. I was sore for a few days after.
Yeah, they beat you up. And like I said, for me, the hardest part with billfish that I've caught isn't when they're running out; it's when they do sound. Yeah, and they get into that, and you're just pulling, and like you said, you get into this stalemate, and it's just going down, or it's just leveled out down deep, and you can't do anything.
Can't do anything.
And that's the part that just beats you up. Or if I've had them where they were down like that, and then they would just change direction. And so it was like all of a sudden just down and being twisted to the side. And it's like, oh my God, this fish is strong.
Yeah. I've never felt something so strong. And it was great having a rudder on that Kusa, so I could just, once it started turning, you just change the rudder, make sure you're
right.
Like, very important. I know, but just to keep the rod towards the bow helps tremendously. And if you don't have a rudder, sometimes that's difficult. But that helped a lot.
Yeah, particularly if the rod is really short.
Yes.
If the rod's 7 foot at least, then it'll help you pivot the boat. If the rod is 6 feet, the boat will get towed sideways because it's not long enough to put the leverage point out far enough to make the boat turn. So it's kind of, you have the advantage of more pulling power with the shorter rod, but the longer rod gives you that advantage of being able to control your boat a little bit better. And there again, that rudder, if you're using that short rod, the rudder would really come into play. We got another question from Dan Diaz. If I rent gear, does it come with lures and rigging?
Yes. So if you rent gear, you get 3 rods and 3 reels. And the first setup is an accurate 600 on a 6.6 jigging rod. That's what you're live baiting with, and it comes with a live bait rig. Our live bait rig is a 13.0 circle hook with 80-pound fluorocarbon, about 10 feet of it. And then you're going to get a Spin Fisher 6500 on the same jigging rod. It comes with 65-pound braid, and you're going to get a jig with that. And you're not going to get a jig with that. You're going to get a deep diving plug. And for the lighter setup is a 7-foot medium action rod with a Spin Fisher 4500 on it. And there you'll get a smaller vertical jig. You'll get that jig that we use to cast for bait and catch snappers. And it's this little 25-gram jig. We've got everything on it. We've got tons of roosters. It's like the best thing to use. But you'll get that whole series of rods, all with rigs or lures. Is
that included in the package? Is that just available for somebody who comes, or is that an additional charge to rent gear?
So that's an additional charge. So that's $250 for the week.
Well, that's very fair.
Yeah, because it's good. It's great gear. If we didn't have good gear, then we just have to keep replacing it all the time because nothing can handle the big fish we have. So
yeah, exactly.
And then a lot of people want to bring their own gear too, so we can't just include that always, you know.
Right. James Macbeth has a question. Was I the best looking fella ever to grace Los Buzos so far?
I can't. I won't answer that. I don't want to get anybody.
I'm going to say no, James. I haven't seen all the guests, but I'm going to say no.
I figured it was going to be a question like that. That's funny.
Jeremy says, "Hi guys." Hey Jeremy,
what's up?
William Citron, crappie jigs are the best for bait. I've never used crappie jigs for catching bait.
They're awesome. They're great. It's a little bigger than like a bigger sabiki bait. You know, it's got a stronger hook. We use 1/8 ounce. And a lot of times, like when you get into the bait real thick, they're too big. Like you'll hook them on the sabiki, and you'll hook too many of them, and they'll break off.
Right.
Or like you'll fight them for too long, and they're too weak, and a big fish will come eat the bait off, eat the blue runner that's attached to the sabiki, and take it. I couldn't tell you how many times that's happened. So we make sure that we get one at a time so we can bring them in quick.
Now I know, Bonita, if you're going to catch one of those, you got to hook it and put it right on the hook.
Very quickly, yeah.
Because they just don't live in a bait tank. They will do okay in a tuna tube. I know we experimented with some tuna tubes while I was there because that's all we had was the big baits. Do the blue runners live okay in a bait tank?
Yeah, blue runners are fine in a bait tank as long as it's big enough for them. We've used, like, I don't know, 15, 18-inch blue runners, and they won't fit in a bucket. You got to put their head down,
right.
They're just flapping with their tail out of the bucket. And they'll actually last like that for like 10 minutes, but anything longer than that, they won't. So if they're that big, a blue runner, I'll put them like on a stringer and I'll throw them off the side of the boat. But I'm also working on a bigger live well that I can keep with me. And when we have groups, like bigger groups, we'll have a live bait on the panga out with us. So we try to load up the panga, the bait well in the panga full of bait, and then we can just kind of divvy it up as it goes. And that's like ideal because if you catch a blue runner, it's like almost a guarantee that you'll hook a big rooster or a big cubera.
Nice. Scott Kopp, will they have a Kraken 15.5 for me to fish out of in Panama?
We have one Kraken.
Yes. I insisted when I went, we had to have at least a Kraken show up. So there is a Kraken down there.
We'll put your name on it. It's already got this name on it.
Yeah. This is a great question from Jeremy. How far of a paddle is it to your go-to spot around Los Buzos?
So that's going to be about 1.5 miles paddle. It's pretty short. We have a series of rocks. It's like an exposed reef. Comes up from about 70 feet, and it comes out of the water, out about 1.5 miles. And we normally fish around that or just outside of it. That's where we've caught most of our big fish. I caught my marlin about 100 yards away from it. Like 90% of our roosters and cuberas are caught right next to it.
The launch is a challenge for people who aren't experienced in surf launches, or it can be. But you guys do such a good job of getting people off the beach and then catching them when you're coming back in. Describe the not just the launch, but the S turn, what people have to go through and why they need to be aware of what's going on out there.
Okay, so we always launch each angler individually, and we help them beach their kayaks individually. We'll actually do it for them when they're coming back to the beach. But so we're in this bay area, and it's protected by an exposed reef. And there's two gaps in that exposed reef. One we call the main pass, one we call the S-curve. Now the main pass will close out if there's a big swell. So sometimes we can't go out there. But this S-curve is like a channel through these rocks. And it's deep in the middle. It's like about 15 feet deep, but it looks like you're going through a channel, but you'll have breakers on your right and then breakers on your left. So it kind of looks a little bit sketchy, but it's always safe to go through it. I've gone through it in about 10 to 12 foot breakers, and it's kind of scary because there's breakers on both sides of you, but you go right through, no problem, every time. So, but we also don't get swells like that very often. Like a lot of times it's glass calm, and there's not a ripple in the bay. It happens more often than it's rough. So that's what I like about Panama. Like when I was in Florida doing charters in Florida, we lost, like, I couldn't tell you, like 60 or more % of our trips just because of the weather. You couldn't launch, it got too rough. But in Panama, it's way more consistent with good weather.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. And I can attest to it. I mean, I'm very comfortable in the surf zone. I mean, the launching and landing, that was nothing. But not knowing that reef and not knowing, the exact lineup, and you guys did such a good job of having us follow you, so we got used to it. And then I just ran a track on my fish finder so then I could run it myself and not have to worry about it. But it's a weird feeling because we did have big surf.
Mm-hmm.
When you do have those big waves on either side of you and threading that needle, it's a little unnerving, even for somebody like myself who's so used to the surf. It's different. So it was so important to have you guys out there. Particularly those first, few days when you're trying to figure it out, which days we could go straight out and which days we had to run the S turn.
Yeah. You definitely have to have some experience in the area, and it's very important to have a guide there for the first few days for sure.
Jeremy says it almost sounds like a drift sock could be used in that situation for extra drag. I assume you're talking about when you're on a billfish. I can tell you my opinion on it. I don't like it, mainly because a lot of times these fish will spin you around, and that's a really good opportunity to get wrapped in the drift chute or have your line get caught in it. And it's just one more piece of gear in the water. Now, what we've done in the past when, we had a group, we always would have, people follow the guy that was on a Marlin, and we would basically just hang onto the back of their boat. And I would actually I would T-bone the kayak. So if their kayak's going this way, I would put my kayak sideways on the back end of their kayak and make the fish drag me sideways. So, there is different ways of dealing with it. For me, though, the drift sock was not something I ever wanted to get involved with, just for that reason. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree. And I like being pulled. I don't want to have to deal with that behind me, especially like if it is causing a bunch of drag. I don't want to get spooled. So I don't want to have to deal with that. And I also don't want to spin around and get tangled in it. That's exactly, you hit it.
Yeah. William says, I definitely would have worried about it jumping towards me. Yeah. And as you said, it happened to you. I've had it happen to me when they come jumping straight at you, and it's scary. I mean, that's the whole thing about billfish versus tarpon. I mean, tarpon are so much fun, but if one jumps and hits you, it might hurt you, but it's not going to impale you. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's that whole different level of excitement you get from billfish. That's actually why I like marlin better than sailfish, because sailfish being so small, you can get them turned back to you so much faster. And, you can have a very green fish get turned right back at you all of a sudden, and it's jumping right around you. So sailfish scare me a little bit more than marlin do, at least in those stages.
I've had one of my friends get poked in the arm, and I've had one get poked in the knee. They'll get you, but like if that was a marlin, it would have gotten them a lot more. But yeah, they're so much more unpredictable. I think. I mean, you have more experience with marlin than me, but I know how crazy the sailfish can get right next to the kayak.
Yeah, sailfish are a little bit crazy, and marlin definitely, particularly striped marlin, which is what 90% of what we've caught are, is they're much more predictable. And the sales are just going crazy. James Macbeth says, "Whatever." I'm assuming that's a reply to my comment. You know, I love you,
great.
James. You're just not that pretty.
Whatever.
Nicholas has a great question. Exactly how many beers is unlimited beers?
Yeah, it's up to it's up to the anglers. It's infinite. We've gone through what was it? We had two groups, and they went through 45 cases, and that was in 2 weeks. So, and we had enough. We had plenty left. So, if y'all can beat
Well,
that,
yeah, we tried to put a dent in it, and we thought we were putting a little bit of a dent in it, and then you go back to the cooler, and all of a sudden it's filled again. So, I mean, Jameson had it in his head that he was going to be able to, empty that cooler, and it never happened. So
it doesn't happen.
if between Jameson and I and our group, if we couldn't put a dent in it, I don't think anybody's putting a dent in it. Dan Diaz, type of beer, Panama or Balboa?
So we have Panama. That's my favorite, and also the other one is Soberana. But yeah, Balboa is very popular around our area. You can get it anywhere but our lodge. But it's like $1 if you were to go somewhere else and get it.
James says, for those of us with wives who want to join us but don't fish, is there anything there for them?
Absolutely. So we get a lot of couples, and a lot of times they don't want to stay at like the fishing lodge, like our fishing lodge. So about a mile down the coast or a mile down the road, there's a hotel. It's more of a resort called Hotel Playa Cambutal. And they are much more of a resort feel. They have a restaurant, they have a bar, they have amazing, very nice rooms. And they also have like one of the best surf breaks at their beach and a pool. There's also, for other activities outside of that, there's waterfalls, beautiful beaches. There's like no one on the beaches. So it's that black volcanic sand. You very rarely see anybody walking on it. And there's amazing rock formations and caves to walk to. But we're also right on the foot of the mountains. So we have a bunch of trails through the mountains, and you can do horseback rides. There's all kinds of stuff to do.
Oh, and there was also the yoga place, right?
Yeah.
Was that,
yeah.
Is that
Yep,
the same
right
resort where some of the guys went and got massages?
Yes. So right next door to us is Sansara. It's a very well-known yoga resort, yoga retreat. So they offer massages, and they also have a nice bar and a pool and stuff. So a lot of times our guests will go over there and get a massage or hang out at the bar. Or if we have some wives or girlfriends or whatever, the angler can go fishing out with us, and the wife can go hang out and do yoga or get a massage or hang out at these other places. So everybody stays busy.
Yeah, it is a bit of a mission to get there. What would you say, it was a 6-hour drive from Panama
5.5
City?
to 6 hours. I got to turn the light on here. So but it's a cool drive. Half of it, the first half is kind of through the city and some small towns, and the last half is like through the mountains, and you see monkeys and you're crossing rivers and stuff. It's pretty interesting. Move this away from the light. I don't want to blind you.
William says he's working on getting there. Definitely on the bucket list. I'm not a big believer in bucket lists. I just say, just go do it.
Just go do it.
Just go do it. You only live once, and I've said for years that Panama. I mean, I would go to Panama every year if I could. It's always been one of my, and I've been to different areas of Panama with different operations, and it doesn't matter where I go. It is definitely one of my favorite places to go for the fishing and the variety of fish you can get, the wildlife that you will see. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. And the fact that you guys have got it so dialed in for kayak anglers, I mean, they're really there's nothing better out there. I mean, if you want the experience to go out there and catch just insanely cool fish, or at least have the opportunity to at a really cool destination, I mean, I highly recommend Los Buzos. I mean, we had a very very tough trip when we went. We had some weather, we had ripping current, we had a really hard time with bait, and we still had a great time and still caught fish. And I still want to go back. I mean, even having a tough trip, it's still worth going to this place. I mean, it's just the potential of catching world class fish every time you go on the water is absolutely phenomenal. Scott asks, what is the best time of year to fish Los Buzos?
So we get that question a lot. It's actually, I'll tell you, my favorite time of year is April and May, because during that time we get the cold water currents that come through and they bring the billfish. So we were seeing marlin every day. We were seeing sailfish every day, and also whale sharks almost every day. So that was one of the things that I never thought would happen. I thought maybe I'd see one whale shark in my lifetime or something, but we went out there one day and we saw 10. But other than those, you're still catching rooster fish. You're still catching cuberas. We've caught roosters and cuberas every month. We've caught them almost every trip that we go out. But April is also part of the dry season, so it doesn't ever rain. So you'll never get rained out. And it's also not very windy. It's before the windy season starts. So you kind of got the best of everything. You got great fishing. The biggest fish are there. And great weather, and a lot of times those colder currents are clear water, so you're getting that blue clear water coming close, and that's what's bringing those sailfish and the marlin, and also the yellowfin tunas. The tunas come very close to shore. Last year or this year, we were catching tunas every day in April and May, right behind the lodge, and about a mile and a half out.
Now,
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Also, I like January a lot, because the first marlin I ever hooked, I hooked in January, and it also is similar to that time of year. You get the colder, the clear currents, still catching a ton of rooster fish. September was an awesome trip. This past September, we caught a ton of rooster fish. Our biggest ever rooster fish was caught in September. And probably our record number of cuberas was caught in September.
On the roosters and cubera, you guys are 100% catch and release, yeah?
Yes. We never want to keep them. They're not good eating. The cuberas are pretty good eating when they're smaller, but there's so many other good eating fish out there that we always release them.
That's awesome.
A couple times it's happened like they got gut hooked or they died or I don't know. They just something happened and they died, and we'll keep them if that happens. But other than that, we always let them go.
That's awesome. Dan, if I wanted to fish Lake Katun for peacocks, how early would he have to fly in on Friday morning if he wanted to fish it at the beginning of the trip? I guess are you guys doing that? I know you were exploring a little bit of fish in the lake. Is that something you guys are still trying to sort out?
We're still kind of working on that. We'd like to have it as an option, but we're still not 100% dialed in, and we're not 100% sure how we're going to fit it into our program. So I know I've been emailing with you, so we'll stay in contact with that. I'll give you some more details as I get them.
And Alex says, "Happy birthday, Adam! Citation Club misses us." Is it your birthday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday, man!
Birthday.
Happy birthday!
I appreciate it. What's up, Alex? Thanks for that.
Another question from Potty Mullet. Can you talk us through the upcoming tournament? When exactly, who's going, and how does it score? And I would assume on how do you qualify?
Okay, so our tournament starts on this January 5th. It's going to be 5 days of fishing. Your best 3 out of those 5 days will count. We're counting catch and release species and species that you would eat. So it's the species that you will bring back and weigh in are 1 point per pound, and that's, I probably won't remember all of them right now, but mahi, wahoo, tuna, dolphin, grouper, snapper, all species, and corvina. I think there's a couple more, but for the catch and release species, marlin is 500 points, sailfish is 200 points, roosterfish is 50 points if it's a trophy, and we have a tournament streamer that we will supply all of the anglers, and it has a mark on it. If the fork of the tail passes the mark, which puts it at 48 inches or bigger, if its tail passes that, it's a trophy, which will give 50 points. If it's smaller than that, 15 points. And those are unlimited. You can catch as many as you want to try to rack up as many points as you can with those. And also it's similar with cuberas. If the cubera is 36 inches or bigger, you release it and it's 50 points. If it's smaller, we bring it back and we weigh it. And for the weigh-in species, it's your best 5 fish per day for the 3 days. We got 12 guys coming: James McBeth, Damien Bowman from Australia, Merv Lowe from Singapore. We're gonna announce these guys over the next few days. So I don't wanna give them all away yet.
Is all this information on losbuzos.com?
Not all of, well, the tournament rules, the tournament,
yeah,
all the stuff about the tournament, yes. We haven't announced all the anglers yet, though. We're going to do that. We're going to start doing that about probably next week.
Very cool. Potty has. If you drank unlimited beers and had beer goggles, would James McBeth get better looking, or is he too far gone?
Oh man, this is getting interesting.
Sorry, James. Scott was asking, how is the fly fishing? Now, I can attest, although I didn't fly fish because we were so locked in on trying to get a cubera and that sort of thing, there were times when we could have easily fly fished for the yellowfin and for the bonita. They were in just such good schools. It would have been a no-brainer to hook up on those fish on the fly. Do many people fly fish that come down?
We haven't had a ton of people try it. I think we only had one try, and it was Charles Levi. He came and he caught a mahi. He caught a nice sized mahi. We were out there near that spot that you caught those yellowfins, and he had a blue runner out, just kind of trolling a live bait, and like a 40-pound mahi hit it, and he hooked it, and it jumped a couple times, and then it spit the hook. And then, so that spooked, but the cow that was with that big one swam right up next to his kayak, and he whips out his fly rod and kind of just throws the fly in the water and does like a figure eight next to the kayak. Doesn't even need to cast it, and the thing smashed it right next to the kayak. It was super cool. I think it was
awesome.
It was like 17 pounds or something. It was a pretty good one. But I'm not a good fly fisherman. I don't do it very often, but I've tried it a few times out there. I caught a pretty good sized bluefin trevally. And
I bet that was fun.
Rock snapper. Yeah, it was cool. Like, I'm sure you know they stick their head out of the water when they're chasing the bait, and because their mouth's kind of on the bottom of their face, so it's kind of like a redfish. Like their whole head will come out of the water and they'll smash it on the surface. That's cool.
And
that's
just
probably
like
the
any
biggest thing I've caught on the fly.
So fun. James is. I get better with more beer. I also ironically push the limits of beer consumption. Yeah, we all did our best.
Yeah. As long as it's not before you go on the kayak, it's all good.
Right. It's you save it for the end of the day. I mean, we don't bring any beer out on the water with us. Just water, and you need plenty of water.
Yes, very important.
James says you can fly fish the rocks for sure. Clear water would be good too. Yeah, I mean. Let me ask you, when we were there, pretty much every day until about the last day, we had ripping current. So it was, you were almost paddling on the treadmill. Do you get a lot of strong currents like that, or?
We really don't. Like, I'm trying to remember, it was probably like 3 to 4 miles an hour when you were with us?
Yeah, because you could paddle and stay in one place.
Yeah, that's about the most we ever get. And more often than not, I'd probably say 70% of the time, it's like no current. It's so like the average is like half a mile an hour.
Okay. Now,
So
when I used to guide down in Mexico, and I wasn't down there full time. We did certain, scheduled trips, 5 trips a year. Um, I was always avoided the full moon. I never wanted to have my trips during a full moon. I mean, it was just so clear and it's so bright. I definitely noticed on the times we were down there during a full moon that it did affect the daytime bite. Do you see that down there, or do you think it matters?
with certain species, yes. We've caught a lot of fish on the full moon, but we're still trying to figure out a pattern. We've had some really bad days on the full moon, but we've also had some pretty good days on a full moon. So I haven't really noticed too big of a pattern. I'm doing what I can to try to get some more research out there, but it does seem to affect like the rooster fish a bit, and other than that, like
It's breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear any better? Can you hear me any better?
Yeah.
Okay. So like for outback, just for the rooster fish and the cuberas, it's a little worse. But like if you go out deep or you go to that mothership spot, the tunas have been really good on a full moon. But the biggest thing I've come to figure out is the bite from the cuberas and the roosters is a little worse on full moon.
Okay. Good to know. Ruben Rivera, is there a lot of shark activity?
One more thing to add, I did catch the marlin on a full moon. I caught the marlin
Well,
max high tide on the full moon.
Very good.
But sharks. So there's not very many sharks. That we do catch small ones. I think you guys hooked some on your trip. We never see big ones. The biggest shark I've seen is 8 feet long, and it was a hammerhead. And I've only seen one. Sometimes we'll catch those small. I don't even know what they're called. They look like a black tip, but they're like 3 feet long. Sometimes we'll catch those, but nothing big. So there's like you don't have to worry about sharks out there.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's a James Macbeth story. We were in Panama, and he screams that a big tiger shark swam under him. And so I have a shark shield. I turn on my shark shield and I start paddling over to him. And I'm like, what did it look like? Well, it was really big and it had spots.
What, did you get an eagle right?
It was a whale shark.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Whale shark. And I personally have never seen a whale shark. So I was like, are you kidding me, dude? I could have had my chance to see a whale shark, and I turn on my shark shield and potentially spook it away.
Oh, man. That's funny.
Yeah. You know what we did see, and which was really cool on our trip, was an incredible amount of whale activity. The volume of humpback whales we were seeing was amazing, and right near us, I think you guys got some underwater footage. One of the guys jumped in the water with his GoPro next to him. Mm-hmm. I mean, so many humpback whales. It was absolutely amazing, and if you ever get tired of seeing that, you're not living right, because it's so awesome.
That's right. Yeah. And it's like June through September is the best time to see whales, so they migrate and they give birth right in our cove. I've seen them in like 20 feet of water. So we've actually seen them give birth, and then we'll see the baby come up to the surface, and the mom will put it on its back and lift it up like it's teaching it to breathe. Couldn't tell you how many times we've seen it. It happens all the time. And you'll see them come to the surface. They'll smack the tail on the water, or they'll completely breach. I got some really good footage the other day of some whales breaching completely out of the water. And the mom will do it, and then the baby will do it right after. It's really cool. And they do it so close, like you can stand on the beach or you can sit at the lodge at one of the tables and you can watch it happen. They're close.
Right. Well, for when we were there, they were just outside the barrier reef.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't out far at all, and they were right where we were paddling around, to the point where it's like, you know, keep your eyes open, because the last thing you need is one of these things breaching on top of you.
Yeah, that makes me nervous sometimes. I've got super close. Yeah.
But like I said, it's just one of those things you never ever get tired of. So if what is the process? You said that you guys work with a hotel down there, or you set them up with a hotel in Panama City. So that's the deal. You fly into Panama City.
Yeah. So we'll give you, so our trip runs for 6 nights, but it ends up being more like 8. So our guests will fly into Panama City, and then they'll spend the first night in Panama City at a hotel. It's called Hotel Milan. We make the reservations. They always hold rooms for us. So there's always space. All of our people will stay there, and then we send a shuttle that picks them up in the morning the next day. And that shuttle will take you directly to our lodge. A couple stops on the way. That'll stop for lunch, get whatever you need. And then on the way back, same thing. The shuttle will pick you up on the last day at like 11 o'clock, so right before noon. And it'll take you to Panama City. You'll get there just before dark. And you'll usually spend your night there at the same hotel and then fly out the next morning. But some people like to stay in the city for a couple of days, and there's a couple other things you can do there. Like a lot of guys take the canal tour. There's a lot of history behind the Panama Canal, and they do a really good job of doing that at the tour. And there's some historic spots you can see, like Casco Viejo, and just some really, really nice different restaurants that you can kind of explore and tour around.
Yeah, and if people are into gambling, which I am not, but there is casinos and all that, and some really nice restaurants in Panama City. And I mean, like I said, it's a cool place, and I've never felt uncomfortable when I've been there. It's always felt very safe, particularly once you get out to a place where you guys are. I mean, it is remote. It's like I said, it's a bit of a mission to get there, but once you're there, it's, you know, you have no need to be anyplace else anyway.
Exactly.
The food at the resort was phenomenal. The guys cooking food in there were fantastic. I mean, like I said, I can't say enough great things about Los Buzos, and I definitely would love to come back and shoot another show and get some redemption on all those fish that destroyed us. You know, it wasn't even just the cubera that rocked us so many times. It was the footage of rooster fish just following the bait and never hitting it. I mean, sometimes putting a camera in the water is not a good thing, because then you can look at the footage later and just be that much more frustrated.
Yeah.
So, you know, I said we had one of those trips, and everybody has trips like that from time to time, but it's still worth going, and I can't reiterate that enough. It is an amazing place, and you guys do such a great job. I mean, for instance, I mean, for anybody who's wondering, I mean, they would barely let us lift a finger to move our kayaks, to move our gear, to set up boat. I mean, you almost had to insist on doing your own thing if you want to do it, because you guys work your tails off, and I really appreciated that. And I mean, that's just a sign of a great operation.
I appreciate you saying that.
What is the cost if somebody wanted to come on one of these set trips? How much does that cost somebody? Because to me, it seemed super reasonable.
Yeah, we try to make it as reasonable as possible. So the base rate is $17.50. You can come, bring your gear, do everything, eat free, or eat all you can, drink all you can, do the whole trip for $17.50. If you don't want to bring your gear, which a lot of people don't, you can rent that. You can rent the tackle package, like I explained in the beginning, for $250, and that way you can just fly in with a backpack and you'll have everything you need. That's what a lot of guys do, because like you can get a Spirit flight and fly with a backpack for, I've gotten them for $300 round trip. So flights to Panama really aren't that expensive either. So a lot of guys do that. It's pretty inexpensive for a really, really awesome trip.
Well, you're getting a thumbs up from Debbie Brenchley Fisk.
I think she's downstairs.
Is
Thanks
that
for
I
that.
can't is that sister or mom?
That's my mom.
Cool. Hi, mom. Well, you know what? We're just hitting that 1 hour mark, dude, and as these things always fly by. If people really want to get more information, I mean, are you available to answer questions? Or is there a contact information on the website? Any of that? I'll put that back once again, losbuzos.com.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways for them to contact us. You can add me on Facebook and message me direct if you want, or you can go to losbuzos.com. Pretty simple. You can go to our website there, and you can see all the details. Pretty much everything you need to know is on that website. Also, if you want to email info@losbuzos.com, we'll get right back at you, answer any questions you have, and you can add us on Facebook at Los Buzos Resortt, and for Instagram, it's Los Buzos Panama. All one word, or no spaces. But you can get a hold of us on any of those.
Scott says, "Congrats on your sweet Marlin, Adam."
Appreciate it. It was awesome.
Adam, again, I can't thank you enough for joining me here today. I know we were talking about this, and you know we had to get you back in stateside before we could do it, so you had a good enough connection, and I really appreciate it. And let's chat soon about how we can get back down there and shoot another show. Good luck to everybody fishing the tournament, including our good buddy James McBeth, who we were giving a little bit of a hard time. But I'm wishing everybody luck on that. It sounds like it's going to be a great deal. I'll be talking to you later, man.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me on, and I'll be happy to do another one. And
Awesome.
I'm excited for you to come back.
Awesome, man. Take care.
All right, take care.
So, I mean, like you said, I mean, I don't spew about places that I don't think are an awesome deal and a great place to go. And it really, really is a great place with amazing service. Like I said, these guys work their tails off guiding and for everything you do. Like I said, they barely let us lift a finger. So if you ever have a chance and you want a cool adventure, visit Los Buzos. I highly recommend it. Well, that's all for us today. I don't know if I'll be doing a show next week because it is a holiday, you know, the day after Thanksgiving. I don't know if I'll be doing or not next week or not, but I will keep you posted. I appreciate you guys all for watching. Remember, if you're going out on the water, always wear your PFD and keep your paddle right side up. Take care. Well, I hope you enjoyed that show and saw what a really cool place Los Buzos is. I highly recommend visiting there. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Kayak Fishing Tales so you get notified whenever a new video goes up. Take care.